Hello and welcome to this video, and at this point I normally say, and this video is called, and I say the name of the video, right? But on this video I have an announcement for you, and the announcement is I've set up a Patreon, and I would love to get you to come over to the Patreon, and I would love to have you guys there so you can get more involved in the channel, that I can give you extra content, weirder content, wackier content, and also that I can get you involved in the content. So please, if that sounds interesting to you, please get on over. So what I thought I'd do today on this video is give you an idea of the sort of stuff I'm going to be doing over at Patreon, which will be different to my videos. So I've just sat down and I've thought, what shall I talk about? Normally I at least have a subject, but at the moment I haven't got a subject. So the title that you see down there is the title of whatever I come up with doing. Now, I'm staring at me and I'm staring at some of my record collection. I've got all the vinyl behind me here, ton of vinyl, I've got some CDs, loads of music books, and then in the room behind I've got all my CDs, right? One of the biggest pains in the bum, as we say here in the UK, when I do my videos, is having to find the albums, and often I can't find them. But staring at those, I think I've had a little idea for this video, which will be quite interesting. So I've just come up with this as I'm talking to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the chair. See, this is the mad, insane stuff that's going to happen over at Patreon. I'm going to get out of the chair and I'm going to walk over to my records. And I'm going to pick 5 records. So here I am, I'm going to pick 5 records. I'll shout because I'm further away from the mic. Right, this is why you've got to go to Patreon, give me a bit of cash so I can buy some mics and lights. So we're not working like this. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to grab an album. I'm going to go grab 5 albums out of here. I don't know what they are. So I'm going to grab that one. Let's go down to this. That's 1. Here's another one, 2. Oh, I've got my hand. Oh. Here's another one, 3. Right? You didn't expect this sort of stunt work, did you? Oh, a few more have come out there. I don't know. I've got 3. I'm going to pick 5. Let's go down to here. 4. 5. Right. So I've just pulled random. Let's go right down the bottom here. And I'm going to talk about these albums and see what I can come up with. But I still haven't looked at them. I'm looking at you. I don't know what they are. Right, so I'm going to drop them on the floor now and I'm going to pick up the first one. Ooh! It's a double album. So the first album I've come up with is Tales from Topographic Oceans. Oh, I feel sorry for this album. This was made by Yes, the great British progressive rock band, symphonic progressive rock band, I think 1973. Okay, it's the album that drove Rick Wakeman away. It's the album where they turned the recording studio into a farm and they had a cow that you could milk, you know. This has always been, in terms of the media, held up as the album which is the sort of peak of prog decadence, right? It's not the case. This is an absolutely fantastic album, and it's Yes at their peak, right? And yes, there's a lot of stuff on here. As a kid when I bought it and I listened to it, Revealing of Science of God I liked it when I first heard it, and then I went to side 2, the Remembering, High on Memory. I didn't like that, was a bit noodly. Then I went to The Ancient. Well, The Ancient is really dark and it's very percussion-y. I love that. And then Ritual, and I thought Ritual was an epic equal to Close to the Edge or Gates to Liram. I really think that's the case. Now I'm older and I listen to it, right? I can hear more in it. And I think Revealing of Science of God is an absolute masterpiece. I think the people who say you could have cut this down to a single album, it would have been a masterpiece. Not quite true. I think you could probably cut it down to 3 sides. I think that's the problem. And I would not have got rid of any of it. There's just certain moments where you go, well, this has gone on for a while. You know, but this is nitpicky. In terms of progressive rock, this is one of the masterpieces of progressive rock. And it's essential for anybody who loves prog rock. So what have we got next? I'm not looking. I promise you I'm not looking. Right, the next one. Oh, wow. the Zawinul Syndicate from 1988. Okay, so weather reports slowly start running down in the 1980s, and by 1985 and 1986 they're pretty much done, and you get the last album, which is called This Is This, which is Wayne Shorter's barely on it. Okay, but Joe Zawinul has got ideas, and he takes it on into this band, the Zawinul Syndicate, the Immigrants. Now I think off the top of my head, and I might be wrong, that this is the first album by the Immigrants. The lineup is Joe Zawinul. This isn't off my head, I'm reading it. It's Joe Zawinul, Scott Henderson, Abraham Laboriel, Alex Acuna, Colin Rochester, and Rudy Regalado. And then there's a ton of singers on here, right? What Zawinul's doing here is exploring that vocal end of composition. He'd started to do with Weather Report, because the Weather Report are an instrumental band, but actually as they progress, vocals become more important, and he's starting to really explore the vocals. I believe, because this is obviously off the top of my head, that he made an album later on called Voices. I haven't got it, but I think this is the journey to that. But what was most interesting for me was to have the incredible Scott Henderson, someone I haven't spoken about on this video very much. But Scott Henderson, you know, with Gary Willis, had a band in the 80s, 90s called Tribal Tech, and I need to talk about them at some point, because they really are one of the most important fusion bands in the history of jazz fusion. In terms of 80s and 90s, really, really important. And it's wonderful to hear that sort of post-Weather Report sound with electric guitar on, and Scott Henderson's the perfect guy to do it. So that's the next album on my random pick. What have we got next? Right, well, this one I've only just spoken about. So I did a video on King Crimson, and this came in at #1. This is the first King Crimson album I ever bought, right? So I'm not going to tell you about this album, okay, because I've spoken about it on that video which I only put out a few days ago, but I'm going to tell you a little story about this album. I have a friend, incredible guitarist called Big John, right? Big John Briscoe. He's currently playing guitar with Don Powell from Slade. And I recently made a record with Don Powell and Slade called Let There Be Drums. There's a ton of other drummers on there. And this is what this channel's about. If you sat down and spoke with the guitarist of Don Powell, right, and asked him who his favourite band was, he would say his favourite band is possibly Magma. But he's also a huge King Crimson fan. Such a fan that he's actually got a tattoo on his person of this very cover. When I played Drumfest in 2005, Bill Bruford came to see me play, which was very exciting because I got to meet him. And in my exciting, I called Big John over and tried to make him take his shirt off to show Bill this very tattoo. I can't remember if he ended up showing it, but I know Bill was he took it very well, but I think it was very, very, what's the word? Weird. So that's my Locks, Tongues and Aspic story. What have we got next? Oh my God. These are random, okay? But this is great. They're next to each other. I'm sure I picked them at a certain place. Here's another King Crimson album. So I'm pretty sure this came in #2, you know, Discipline. So I spoke about all this one as well. I'll tell you a Robert Fripp story. Many years ago I had a student, and they were a big King Crimson fan, and they basically wrote a letter. On here you've got an address on these albums you often have. I can't see it here, but often you get an address for EG Records. So he wrote to EG Records and asked Robert Fripp to give him a call, right? But he didn't have a phone. This was back in the early 90s, and so he gave me the number of the college. So I'm working, teach at college, and the phone goes, and go and answer it, and this very polite man comes on and asks for the student, asks if they're there, and I said, yes, I'll just go and get him. Who is this? And they said, this is Robert Fripp. At which point the phone dropped out of my hands. So there's my King Crimson. Oh, right, next one. And I've just seen the last one, and that's going to be a really difficult one to talk about. Here, right, you know what this is, right? 70s and 80s, they released lots and lots of compilation albums of Jimi Hendrix. me not knowing which were the real albums and which were these compilation albums, I bought a ton of them. Now, the first Jimi Hendrix album I ever bought was this album. This is why it's falling apart, right? Because I must have bought this probably nearly 40 years ago. Actually, probably 40 years ago, to be honest. This is how I grew up listening to Jimi Hendrix, and this was the album for me. It was these tracks were the first ones I ever heard. Stone Free, Crosstown Traffic, Easy Rider, The Drifter's Escape. All those are very funky, you know. There's a lot of funky tracks on here. Then The Beautiful Angel. And then, of course, I've experienced a psychedelic mess that, you know, ends up on the first album. Turn It Over, you have possibly one of the greatest songs ever made, possibly one of the greatest guitar solos ever made, All Along the Watchtower. His incredible live version of Johnny Be Good. And then The Red House, Long Hot Summer Night, Castles Made of Sand, and Little Wing. You know, here we have this sort of much more ethereal side of Hendrix. This is the album that I grew with. This is the one, you know. And it's one of the reasons why I haven't done my top 10 Hendrix albums. Because of the actual albums he released, the one I've listened to the most is probably Band of Gypsies. I also had a copy when I was young of Axis Boulder's Love, right? But I still don't own a copy of Electric Ladyland, and the reason for that is because a lot of these tracks, when I went to buy the album as a kid, I thought, well, I've got most of these tracks, so I didn't buy it. And I've been thinking recently that I should buy a copy of Electric Ladyland. Of course, if you come over to the Patreon, one of the things I want to do is there's so many albums and bands I haven't heard, and I'd really like to just go and get an album and give you my reaction to it. And in some cases, I've heard Electric Ladyland at parties and around at people's houses so many times, but I don't think I've ever sat down and just listening to it beginning to end. So, the last of my 5 random albums. Oh my God. And this is going to stretch my knowledge, okay? What can I say about this? Not much. Okay, so this is this one. Okay? The Henry Kaiser Band, recorded live. Right, and it's called Heart's Desire. Right, now I believe that this album I have borrowed. I think it belongs to my friend Loz Ruston. I think I possibly had it for about 25 years now. And I've only listened to it a couple of times. Henry Kaiser is in the area of more avant-garde jazz fusion guitarists, you know, and much more experimental. But apart from that, I can't tell you much about this album. It's a double album. I'm looking to see if there's anything I said made in 1990 on Reckless Records. The lineup is Bruce Anderson on guitar, Tom Constantin on keyboards, Hilary Haynes on bass, John Haynes on drums, so they must be related, then Henry Kaiser on guitar, and then Carrie Sheldon on vocal. There's a cover of Dark Star. It opens up with Dark Star by the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead are so important in this history of jazz fusion, and not only do they represent one of the first pairings of rock and jazz, but it's jazz coming from a rock musician's point of view. I think with people like Ornette Coleman, that enabled certain musicians to access jazz improvisation without having to learn, you know, 2-5-1s and bebop changes. And that thread has gone on into so many styles at the moment, you know, like the jam bands, and also this line of avant-garde guitarists. This has really been fed by Primetime, I think, Ornette Coleman's band. But I think as I'm talking, I will leave it there. So you can probably see my knowledge of Henry Kaiser is limited. And if on Patreon, I will at some point contact my friend Loz, who's a fantastic guitar player, and I will bring him on and I will give him this back. So that's my promise, okay? I didn't realise it was still in the collection back there. So if you're into this more weird, a more random approach, you know, getting into areas, then please pop over to the Patreon, you know, have a look at what I've got there. I've got 2 tiers, so for £5 a week you get access to a ton more stuff. You know, I'm eventually going to have all my albums up there for free download. There's going to be live streams and chats, and from those chats I want to bring the patrons onto the show. That's one of the ideas I want to have, you know, to base, if they're close, for them to come over here, but more likely, you know, we jump on Zoom or Skype and I record those discussions. You know, there's so much knowledge amongst the subscribers on this channel. I really want to access it and, you know, and get a discussion going. The higher tier, which is £25 a month, that's basically a cheaper rate for a one-to-one lesson. So I normally, for drum lessons, guitar lessons, theory lessons, music business lessons, music psychology lessons, which is the stuff I teach away from this channel, I normally charge around about £30 an hour. But I plan to do these over Zoom, and I'll charge £25 an hour, and you will get, you know, one a month, hopefully. I won't guarantee it. Obviously, if I'm ill or something happens, then I can't do it, but I will try and catch up. But that will be the higher tier. So if this all sounds really interesting, please pop over to the Patreon. If you look at the banner on my page, then I think it's going to be there. It could be there. I can't work it out, but I think it's there, isn't it? Because I'm a mirror image. Oh, it's up there. You can see it, Patreon, and it's in the link. Okay, that's enough. I'll see you soon, and see you on the next video. Thank you very much. Bye.